Miss Gina of Cam is here, and I'm going to talk with you a little bit about some study skills and how you can help somebody, especially yourself, learn better. Um, so there are barriers to study, and they're not always just that you don't care. It's not always a lack of interest that creates the problem. So I'm going to go over some of those with you and just kind of a brief overview. And I'm expecting to do some more that uh, go into a little bit more examples of each one. So the first thing is that the biggest and the most number one barrier or preventer of learning is knowing that you already know. So, for example, if I am, well, so for example, there are older people like to tell stories, right? Um, And sometimes they tell the same stories over and over and over. And some of us have more patience with it. Some days we have more patience with it. Um, but the bottom line is sometimes we just tune out. And it takes an effort to actively listen, find out maybe there's a new piece of information in this story. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. But the fact is, you can always learn something from listening. So the point of this is that if you feel like you already know something, you've heard the same story over and over, or if you already have heard it and you've already practiced something, you tend to tune out, right? So we're going to tune these off or tune them down and rather look around, think of something else. Um, and you can miss something if you do that. So that's the first thing, is just understand that you don't know everything about everything. It's impossible. Okay. And so, speaking of not knowing everything about everything, the next thing that can confuse us is not understanding what words mean. We hear them out all the time. People talk to us when we grow up, adults use words with us and kind of just expect us to just assimilate that vocabulary. And for the most part, people can gather what things mean. But if you realize that the older you get, the more you study, the more you're just aware of things, there are things that are assumed to be known, but we don't necessarily know what they are. Um, so there's, in my generation, there was that idea where if you didn't know how to spell a word, or if you don't know what it meant, you looked it up. Okay, well, how do you spell it? Well, look it up. But I'm asking you to spell it so I can look it up. Okay, so we were trained to use our problem solving skills to try to find answers ourselves. Sometimes that worked, and sometimes it didn't. And the problem with dictionaries can be that words are defined around words. Hmm, so maybe on can be defined as being on top of something, or turning a speaker on. Now, I don't know if those are really the definitions, but it's an example of how you can get in word circles. So that's something to really watch for, because you can think, let's see if you thought that on meant to turn a speaker. Okay, so you could turn a speaker around. You could turn it on its side. You could turn it on. You could turn the volume on. But if I was telling you to put dinner on the table, your mind is going to go, wait, that meant I have to turn, like, do you want the music on? And then I'm looking at you like, what? I mean, maybe go ahead, put on the music, but first, could you put the dinner on the table? Do you see where you can get confused? That's a simple word. And I will tell you that simple words can have so many definitions that they can be confusing when they're out of context. So let's see, the next confusing thing would be if you're pretty sure you understand what the words mean, it's possible that you're confused by the step that you need to take. So everything should be taught or learned step by step. And sometimes you can jump steps, you can skip steps, but many times you can't. We can kind of, let's say a physical example is climbing stairs, right? So we can take these large steps and that's fun. And we can take another large step and that's fun. But sometimes it's not. What if you end up with a cramp? Okay, so the cramp is the result of taking too many steps at once. Confusion is a result of skipping too many learning steps at once. And as somebody helping another person learn, you have to find, you have a double job because you have to find, excuse me, how to take a step back and also notice when somebody needs that step back. It's not as simple as trying to walk my granddaughter across some rocks because she wanted to go to the river the other day. I didn't want her shoes in the water because her parents put nice white shoes on. She wanted to go across, but I could see the way she was walking, her little foot was going to get in the water. So I had to help her across, kind of show her how to take a larger step. And so that required me to notice what was going on around me, what she needed, what was in front of us, and the actual goal. So you can see how that takes a bit of effort. It takes a bit of conscious effort. And so you can apply this yourself by noticing when you're stuck or when something is just not working. It's just not working. First of all, recognize you're not done and you probably can do it. It has nothing to do with an innate ability. It has something to do with practicing at the right level. So let's see, what's another example? Oh, there's a math example that I generally go back to. So in kindergarten or maybe first grade, you have a little kid who will come home very excited. Yeah, I learned math today. Oh yeah, what'd you learn? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11, 29, 30. I can count to 30, or usually it's to 100. Okay, well, that's good. So they actually know a little bit. They can count up to 5 technically, right? But they do know that you can jump, you can go more and more and more and more. Then the next level could be coming home and knowing that 1 + 1, that's 2. Okay, so then what happens frequently, and I hope it's not happening as much anymore, but I've seen plenty of times this occurred when I was growing up, but also as a mom. There's somebody who says, okay, you're so smart, you know math, what's 100 times 100? Well, that's just plain mean, isn't it? Because first of all, this person doesn't even know that what times means, what time it is, lunchtime. They just barely learn how to, that 100 was a number. And then the fact that you can put a single digit with another digit or a single amount with another amount to create more, that's kind of an observed concept. That's something that we can already see. And so what happened was they learned to name it. So this 100 times 100 idea just way out across town. And it's just not the right thing. But as a person, you could feel, okay, I don't know math now. In the rest of your life, I've always been bad with math. But as you see in this kind of extreme example, that actually is, it's come from true events. it's not the case. So you just want to watch that you're doing the next step. And your head starts getting spinny, you feel sick, I just feel really angry about what you're doing. Take a step back. If that's not enough, take another step back. And it doesn't matter, you don't have to be embarrassed about it. What you have to do is find what's right for you or your student or your child. And then tacked onto that, sometimes the step that's missed is just the observation. So um, when we, let's say, okay, so eating, most of us eat. Um, when we create lunch, when we make a sandwich, you can make that a sandwich from the time you're very small. You know that you need bread or some sort of thing to put something on and in, and maybe you coat it with a flavoring like a dressing or a mayonnaise or a salsa or something to put on your cheese or your meat or your vegetables, and then you close it. So you pretty much can, anybody can do that. But if you haven't had that experience, maybe the idea of a sandwich or cooking can seem overwhelming. So that's something you have to watch for too, is that the observation, the touching of it, the actual experience before you define what something is can make a difference as well. You can also do it opposite. You can talk about something, but then you go do it. And that's the purpose of labs, at-home practice, manipulatives, things that you can touch, feel. But the main thing is you just need to get an idea what something looks like or feels like with those senses. And I believe that I've covered everything as kind of like a broad stroke picture. Hopefully, I gave you a little bit of examples. And I'll talk with you again. Happy learning.